And welcome to the Dino Budala Show on Substack Live. We are here on February 2nd. Today, you are my guest segment. Once again, you are the guest. And I'm doing this to go through a topic because I'm sincerely interested in how people think about this court opinion, which honestly, as a lawyer myself, was one of the best opinions. And it's 2.5 pages. It's literally 2.5 pages long. And it's involving 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his dad. And everyone knows the case about Liam Ramos, a 5-year-old kid in Minneapolis suburbs coming home from preschool, and ICE abducts him. And what made it viral was there a picture of little Liam with his Spider-Man backpack on, and he has a little blue hat, and he was freezing and left alone there and looked adorable. And ICE lied, saying that the mother didn't want him who was in the house. That's not true. In fact, a Board of Education member, like their Board of Education, Minneapolis, was on the scene. And she said to ICE, I know the kid, I know the family, you can leave him with me. But no, ICE took him and sent him and his dad to Texas. And just so it's clear from a legal point of view, the family was here legally in that they were part of the asylum system. They had applied for asylum, come from Ecuador. They were in the system. As their own lawyers said, they've been following all the established protocols, pursuing their case for asylum, showing up for the court hearings, and posed no safety, no flight risk, and never should have been detained. Under American law, if you were in the asylum program, they came here, they went to a port of entry during the Biden administration, they made a showing of credible fear enough, so they were given a case number, they were put in the asylum program, you're not supposed to get deported. What the Trump administration is doing is they don't care about the law. They're sweeping up everybody they can who's not apparently a green card holder or a citizen, but even some citizens, and they scoop them up, even though they know it's illegal. And they just hope they get them out of the country before the family's lawyers can go to court and protect them. So the case of Liam, though, the reason it got all the attention is the kid was adorable. It got, and I'm not sure people are aware, it got international attention. Like BBC and The Guardian were writing about the story of the kid because you have the little kid, ICE takes him away, they take him to Texas. They right away, Tricia McLaughlin from DHS lies about the family. They're not here legally. That's not true at all. And just so it's clear, ICE has the same access to all the federal databases that all of the federal government does, the DHS. They knew the situation. They knew they were part of the asylum program, but they don't care. So, but I want to get to the decision because it's not legalese. It's not like, oh, this is amazing writing from a legal point of view. And just so people know that the federal judges have done an amazing job. Even some not Trump appointees, but Bush and Reagan appointees have really stood up to Donald Trump. And yes, the GOP Supreme Court has been so corrupt. They've handled about 25 cases from appeals from Trump, and 90% they rule for Trump. But over 150 cases, I was just looking up before we started, over 150 cases have been stopped at the trial level with an injunction. And at the very least, these are delaying the actions from going into effect. Sometimes it's actually an actual victory because the Trump administration doesn't appeal and they just forget it. And that doesn't get much press, but these are real wins. So what happens here, the family, because they have a lawyer, file in Texas an application for habeas corpus. Habeas corpus is the idea of someone is being wrongly detained. Habeas corpus is Latin for the idea of produce the body, but it's what prevents us from becoming the country Trump wants. We can just round up Trevor Noah for telling jokes at the Grammys last night that isn't like, and just arrest him and hold him for as long as he wants. And with no charges, no way to oppose it. So that's what habeas corpus protects us from becoming, Russia under Putin. Trump. So the lawyers file before a judge saying, hey, these are wrongfully detained. They are in the asylum program. They should be released. And the judge, Fred Berry, Biery, the anger and contempt, he does not hide. And again, this opinion is 2.5 pages. That's it. And it's remarkable. I could read all of it, but I'm going to read parts of it for you. And I hope people get it because he's not writing for lawyers. He's writing for us. He's writing for America. And that he wants people to read this. The judge is hoping people, that it wakes up some people. Just like last night at the Grammy Awards, we saw Bad Bunny and numerous other artists, even Billie Eilish, talk about what's going on with ICE, say F ICE, ICE get out of the country. That is really important yesterday. The Grammys, I can assure you, reaches many, many more people than this judge, but the judge is trying to do the same thing. He's trying to appeal based on patriotism, on morality, and also the law. So here's what he writes here. I think it's kind of remarkable. He says, The case has its genesis in the ill-conceived and incompletely implemented government pursuit of daily deportation quotas, apparently even if it requires traumatizing children. So the judge calls out the Trump regime for intentionally traumatizing children, which you're doing. And just so people know, while we know about the case of Liam, there are hundreds of children being detained by the Trump regime. We don't know if they're there legitimately in the prison facility awaiting deportation or not, because it's secretive. They don't even put online where the people are. Like, what we're living through is insane. It will take after this administration's gone to really find out the secret action of their secret police. Okay, so the judge writes, but then the judge writes this, and this is the part I really love. Because if you joined yesterday, I talked about how, quoting from Thomas Paine's famous pamphlet in 1776, that these are the times that try our souls and what we're going through. He goes back to the origin of this country, and I think it's important to do that. And he writes here, apparent is the government's ignorance of an American historical document called the Declaration of Independence. So the judge is saying the Trump regime, with taking Liam, is ignorant of the Declaration of Independence. Now, he's being sarcastic. Of course, they know what it is, but they don't care. And then the judge actually writes these powerful lines. And I'm going to read these because the judge writes 4 of the grievances that were in the original Declaration of Independence. So 4 from the original Declaration of Independence. He writes them now to show you the Trump regime is following what King George did to the framers, the colonists, the people who rose up in a revolution. And here's what he wrote. 33-year-old Thomas Jefferson enumerated grievances against a would-be authoritarian king over a nascent nation. Among others were 1, he has sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. It's written like that because it's right from the Declaration. So it's written that Old English. So he says, he has sent officers to harass our people. 2, he has excited domestic insurrection among us. 3, for quartering large bodies of armed troops against us. So he's putting troops into civilian homes against the wishes of the homeowners. And 4, he is kept among us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. So the judge writes this, literally quoting from the Declaration of Independence, the grievances of the framers, to make the point that we're living through a similar time. And for anyone who missed that subtle point, the judge hits it on the head with this line. We, the people, are hearing echoes of that history. We, the people, are hearing echoes of the history of 1776. Now, the judge, who was appointed by Clinton, who's been around for a while, decades on the bench, respected jurist, is trying to shake people awake. For what it's worth, that's why he's writing it like this. And there is no doubt that we are in a similar place as the framers were when they had King George, who was brutal and cruel and killed his own people. Trump is very similar. And the judge, again, delivered lines here, and he wrote these in the sort of the language of 1700s. It almost sounds like a line Alexander Hamilton would have written. And I hope it's clear anyway, even though it's written in again, it's Old English, but we'll explain it in a second. He goes, and this is the judge's writing. Observing human behavior confirms that for some among us, the perfidious lust for unbridled power and the imposition of cruelty in its quest know no bounds and are bereft of human decency, and the rule of law be damned. So think about this. Let me break this line down, because it is stunning for a federal judge to write this about the president and the regime of the American government. In more plain terms, what he wrote there is that the Trump regime has a corrupt lust for unbridled power, that they enjoy the imposition of cruelty. They act with zero regard for human decency and a total disregard of our laws. In other words, Trump is a vicious, cruel tyrant, like King George. And the judge is right. Does any of that seem over the top to you? That Trump has a lust for unbridled power? No. That he enjoys the imposition of cruelty? Of course he does, yes. 2. 3, that he acts with zero regard for human decency? Yep. And total disregard of our laws. That's Trump. And so often I beg people, think about this if you were looking at America from outside of our soil, that you're living one of our allies, a Western ally, a democracy. You're British, you're in Netherlands or whatever, and you're watching this play out in America. Are you looking at a nation where a president sends troops in the streets to oppress his own people and terrorize his own people and kill his own people? That they use DOJ to prosecute those who dare stand up to him? That they use DOJ to go after everyone from comedians to media outlets to law firms to universities? That you have a leader like Trump who is personally corrupt and profiting from being in the White House to the tune of over $1 billion? What would you say about a country if you read about that? Would you say it's a democratic republic? Of course not. But this is what we have right here. So I think that was remarkable. And the judge was not done. He then added this famous line from 1787 from Benjamin Franklin. But after the story goes, in Philadelphia, the Constitutional Convention, they write the new Constitution, the one that we use now. And someone came up to Ben Franklin and said, "Well, Dr. Franklin, what do we have?" And Franklin says, "A republic if you can keep it." You must have heard that line quoted a lot. Joe Biden quoted it. Other Democrats have quoted it. We have a republic if you can keep it. And that's the question for all of us. Will we keep this republic? Arguably, we're just barely a democratic republic right now because Trump's power is just about unchecked. Not completely. That's the only thing saving us, but just about. And then the judge, and again, as a reminder, this is all the judge's opinion. And the opinion is 2.5 pages. That's why I'm saying this is remarkable. He, in 2.5 pages that were double spaced, he crammed in so much. And he adds this here. First, and he ends this opinion in 2 ways I've never seen. First, he writes this right above his opinion where a judge will write, "It is so ordered," and sign their name. Right above that, he writes this line: "With the judicial finger in the constitutional dike." With the judicial finger, the idea of like the little kid putting a finger up on the dam to prevent it from overwhelming and a tsunami coming. A judge, in a sense of humility, is saying, "I'm doing what I can. I'm putting my little finger on this dam that is leaking, that's about to break through and end your republic. I'm doing what I can." Now, he's not challenging us to do what we can, but I think that's implicit. And then he did something, and I've been reading law opinions since I was in law school 2 decades ago. He ended his opinion after a signature line with something I've never, ever, ever seen. And I'm going to post this as an article in a little while with the video, and you can see it. He posted a picture of Liam, the famous picture of Liam, with the Spider-Man backpack, with the blue hat, with 2 citations to verses from the Bible. This is so you've got his signature line here. It is so ordered, judge signs it. And below this, like a PS, a picture of Liam with these 2 citations from the Bible, Matthew 19:14 and John 11:35. He doesn't lay the verses out. He doesn't tell you what they are. He leaves it up to you to do a little homework. If you want to know what Matthew 19:14 says or John 11:35. So, of course, I looked them up and I'm going to share what they said because the judge wanted us to do this homework. First, Matthew 19:14 tells us these moving words. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." What a beautiful sentiment. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." And the second verse, John 11:35, 2 simple words. 2 simple words. Jesus wept. Jesus wept. Now, again, the judge didn't write these verses out. He just put the citation under the picture of little Liam. The idea that Jesus said, "Let the children come to me." And then Jesus wept is the idea of what Jesus, in his view, this judge, would be doing if he saw what's happening in America today to Liam and to immigrants and to migrants. And all of this, everything I just went through in 15 minutes, I could see it in real time, was an opinion by a judge that was 2.5 pages, double spaced. Every line meant something. Every line in his opinion meant something, which is why, to me, this is one of the most amazing opinions. And I've read 100-page opinions that were remarkable in terms of reasoning and citations and logic and the bigger points and all that. 2.5 pages. I've never seen anything like this. So this opinion offers us a warning from history, and I think a sense of hope from history as well. And, I try my best to be hopeful that we can't give in to what's going on because that's what the fascists want. They want you to check out. They want you to quit. They want you not to care anymore. But that's where we are. So that's the first part of the segment. You are my guest. The second part, for those who joined, and now I'm sweating because of the sunlight coming through my window. It's 25 degrees out, but it's amplified by that. So what happens with the segment, I do this little talk here. Now the rest of it is me reading your comments so that we can hear from each other. Like, what was your reaction to Liam, the 5-year-old, being released? Is it hopeful to you? Do you feel like it's a little victory in this war that we're fighting? What do you think of the judge's opinion, citing the Declaration of Independence? And do you feel like on some level we are fighting a second revolutionary war in that Donald Trump is following the King George playbook, oppression and cruelty? He wants to take away our freedoms. That's not an overstatement. That's really unless you bend the knee to him, he will oppress you. And they're about to send his troops to Ohio to terrorize the Somali community there, which is about 15,000 people. And they're in Springfield, Ohio. And they're going to, at the Haitian community, they've been terrorizing the Somali community, but now they're going after another black community, which to bring joy to the MAGA base, get rid of as many black and brown people as you can. So what do you think about this decision? And I will say this, in every war, there are turning points, right? In every war, there are turning points where the battle shifts and one side gets an advantage. We don't know the turning points until this war is over. We are at war. We're at war with a regime that wants to oppress us, that views us as the enemy. And I think we all get that. So do you take any hope from any of this? Do you feel like the courts have done enough? And if you want to comment on the Democrats, we could do a whole discussion about the Democrats. There's some great Democrats, don't get me wrong. I don't want to try. So now so I'm going to go back for the next 10 or 12 minutes and read the comments from people. And I do this because obviously you can read them on your own, but people join at different times in our conversation here for people to hear how other people are from around the country are seeing this, how you're feeling. Does this give you hope? How do you feeling about the midterms? We're going to have a whole discussion about the midterm. I almost didn't want to bring that up. All right, so here's Susan Scott says, thank you, Dean, for reading these power statements. Again, they're great statements. I'm going to put it if you join late, when I send the video out, I'm going to put a whole article with this, and I hope people read the opinion. It's 2.5 pages, double space. You can read it in 5 minutes. It was not written for lawyers. It was written for us. It was written for patriots. That's what it's written for. Let's see what else I got here. Me, Myself, and I says, what is making humans with consciousness bring words to a war like a knife to a gunfight? Well, humans can't bring words. I'm not sure what that means. Vivian Barrow says, thank you for your explanation, Dean. You rock. Thank you. I'm really needy for comments and compliments, so thank you for any compliments. John King says, balls on accurate. Yes, it is. This judge was great. Look, as someone who's been reading opinions since I went to law school a long time ago, well, I don't practice law full time anymore, thank God, for a while now. I've read so many, thousands of opinions. This was something special. I'm telling you, it was special in its brevity and in its power. And with a picture and Liam in it and the citations to the Bible, which makes you go look up the citations, and they're emotional, regardless if you don't believe in religion at all. When you read the words of why they're cited, there's a level of emotion here. And then, the judge's name, Natalie Lago asked, what's the judge's name? It is Fred Berry, Biery. Biery. And again, I'll send out the article in a short time once this video populates with all of this, and I'll cite to a link to and I hope you'll click on the opinion and read it for yourself as well. So you'll see everything. Let's see. Thanks for everyone who's joining late. Carol, thank you for joining. Carol Bahrami says, I'm not religious, but I love this. Yeah, the point of the judge wasn't to be religious. It was a point to pull at your heartstrings about children and what we're going through as a nation right now. The Sharon Storm says, Glenn Kirscher talked about the ruling. He said it gave him justice bumps. Very interesting. Glenn's my buddy. That's a great line, justice bumps. I wish you'd emailed me that, Sharon. I would have stolen it from Glenn. Now, that's a great line from my buddy. All right, Karen, it's great, but all the children need to be released now. That's absolutely right. There are hundreds of children being held in prisons. Detainment camps are like a cute way of saying it. They are in prison. Joaquin Castro went to the prison in Texas where they're keeping these kids and Jasmine Crockett. And after they came out, they said, oh, these are like supposed to be family detention centers. She said, these are prisons. The children are traumatized. They're not getting their schooling they're supposed to get because they're traumatized. Think about it. You're a 5-year-old and you're in this camp. You were in a house yesterday. Now you're in a prison with your parents, and your parents are going to freak out even if they try to hide it. There's only so much they can hide. Think about what they're going through. And all of this is by design. Trump wants to scare brown and black people. He wants them to self-deport. He wants them to leave the country. He wants them never to come here. And so does his base. That's what we're dealing with. Don't forget. I beg people, when you look at the polls and the media makes a big deal, 60% of Americans don't like what ICE is doing. 58% of Americans don't like what ICE is doing. Look at the breakdown. That 58% are almost all Democrats, 70+% of independents, while a majority of Republicans are on board with all of this. Putting the kids in prison camps, on board with it. And now we found out at this camp where Liam was, there's a measles outbreak. A measles outbreak at a camp where a prison where the U.S. government, Trump administration is completely in control. They're supposed to screen people when they come in. So you're telling us they didn't screen, or you're telling us they don't care, or is it even worse? Because when I read about the measles outbreak, I have to be honest, what I thought of, I bet you many did as well, is the white settlers giving Native Americans blankets with smallpox to erase them, to kill them. And I don't think, measles is not as controllable, perhaps, and their guards are living among it. But part of me thinks, does anyone doubt they would kill the migrants? They're killing American citizens. So why would they kill that's what we're dealing with here. Okay. Let's see. Here's more. MSJ says, hi, Dean. Hello. Tarek says, no more Schumer or Jeffries. It's impossible to defend Schumer. Jeffries has his moments, but, so let's see more comments here. My whole goal is to read your comments because, again, you are my guest. I learn from you. I hope you learn from me. We learn from each other collectively. The goal is we make each other smarter by doing this together. Chrissy W., I'm on the page with you all. You said, Dean, thank you. Thankful for this judge. The judge was great. Sharon, without black and brown people, we would not be an interesting country. Their cultures would become a part of our culture. Absolutely. We would not be without black and brown people. We would be South Africa under apartheid. But even they had black and brown people. They just treated them horribly. If Trump and those guys had their way, they wouldn't be able to deport American citizens who are black and brown, but they want to take away the right of black people to vote. There's a case right now before the Supreme Court. They had oral argument on it. It looks very likely, not to scare people, but they're going to gut the last part of the Voting Rights Act, meaning you can't consider race in looking at new congressional districts that are drafted. So you can't consider race in the Voting Rights Act, which was created because of racial discrimination, meaning it's not going to be applicable anymore. And Trump's already talked about hostility to the Civil Rights Act. Trump literally said 2 weeks ago, the Civil Rights Act, which everybody knows, 1964, was to ensure you cannot have discrimination in public accommodations, hotels, trains, everywhere, and then it applied to private businesses as well. He said this law that prevents discrimination against black and brown people is, quote, unfair to white people. That's what Trump said. That should got a lot more press. I can assure you on Fox News and in the white supremacist chat rooms that love Trump, they're cheering it because they want to end the Civil Rights Act, because they want to go back to segregation. Let's continue on. Elaine says the courts have not done enough. Elaine, the district court's amazing job. The problem is they've been overturned by the appellate courts, and the Supreme Court's horrible. Diana Feather says 34 felons want ethnic cleansing, but we will prevail for democracy, freedom, and civil liberties. They do want ethnic cleansing. You're right. That's this next thing. The only way to prevent white people from becoming a minority in America is not by a white birth rate going up. It's not going to happen. They're outnumbered because people under 18 are already a majority of people of color. It's literally ethnic cleansing. Getting rid of black and brown people are the only way to delay the eclipsing of white people as being the majority. But the idea that everyone who's of color is going to agree on politics and we're all going to agree isn't you don't know any black or brown people if you think we're all going to agree. I'm of Arab heritage on my dad's side. There's old jokes that they also use for people of color and Jewish Americans. If you put two of us in a room on a political topic, you'll hear three opinions. We don't agree on everything. So, but white people are afraid, and Trump plays on that really well. Susan Callahan asked, was the judge I read from a Bush appointee? No, he was a Bill Clinton appointee. But some Bush judges have been great. Even some Reagan judges are still around, have been very good. Sharon says, I think the tide is turning. Jean says, thank you for sharing. I don't know, says, I hope the court will reevaluate Trump being able to break the law and start tracking the laws he is breaking. There are so many laws he is breaking. We're living through a surreal time that on some level it seems like a nightmare, and almost no one's holding Trump accountable. Wisconsin zebra, which sounds really cool. I worry we aren't prepared for the corruption coming from the GQCP. I love the judge's opinion. It's great each time I hear it. The nerve of DT regime ignoring all of our laws because they don't like certain statutes exists. The kid needs to be let out. The kid was let out yesterday, by the way, and is back in Minneapolis. Representative Castro flew up there, and I saw a picture of Representative Ilhan Omar there as well. The Merriam Bus says the judge's ruling really took it to the opposition. Great stuff. We'll do a few more. Karen says, and black, and yet Ghislaine Maxwell gets special treatment. I agree. Maureen Drew says, yes, all children need to be released. They need long-term care after their release. We need more light on the concentration camps and the camps they want to build. Maureen, we have no idea what's going on in these camps. Just talked to my good friend Raul Reyes, who's on my radio show tonight, who's an attorney who focuses in the media on immigration. The lack of transparency is stunning. It's like we don't even know where all the children are. We know the camps they're in. We don't know if they're in the country or out of the country until it's trailing. You find out when they're deported already. They try to move as swiftly as possible. This is an ethnic cleansing operation, not a mass deportation one. It's swift cleansing of black and brown people from U.S. soil. That's what they're about. The Susan Jagata says, since when are people supposed to be in prison for civil offenses? Trump Nazis are lawless. This isn't unconstitutional. It is unconstitutional. That's what the judge said. It was unconstitutional. C says, midterms, Democrats might win a majority in the U.S. House and see gains in the Senate. But even apart from direct interference, I don't think we can discount that these false allegations about Democratic candidates will be amped up as general elections near. Yeah. Trump, by the way, today he was on Dan Bongino's radio show, who left the government, who literally said that Republicans need to nationalize this election and take control about 15 voting locations in the country. The Constitution says otherwise. States run their elections. Republicans will make this a rallying cry. They will try to do that through state statute. Yes, they're going to try to cheat every way possible. All right, I'm going to go down to the bottom here, and I'll go back up and read a few before we wind down, because I try to keep this to 30 minutes. Sort of like if people taking a lunch break and they want to join for a little bit. Let's see. Sass writer. Oh, no. Let's see. Go back here. Jen, freedom is lost gradually by uninformed, uninterested, and uninvolved people. So Jen says freedom is lost gradually by uninformed, uninterested, and uninvolved people. It is because look at this last election. 1/3 of Americans didn't vote. 1/3. Like, this was the most important election. We warned everyone. 1/3 said, nah, I'll sit it out. And some of them you can't blame because the government's never delivered for them, or politicians lie to them all the time, or they only show up around elections and they think the politicians are all bullshit. That's why Democrats need to stand for something very clearly to say, this is what we're for. We're not Republican light. We are really going to do things and work nonstop, every legal means possible to achieve those goals. So, yes, and that's why, again, if you join late, the Grammy Awards last night with Bad Bunny, the biggest artist in the world, and others calling out Trump and the ICE raids and get ICE out of here and stuff like that. I can assure you it reached a lot of people who watch the Grammy Awards for the music and the songs and the artists who don't even know what they're talking about. And if it makes one person Google it, or two, or 100,000 Google it and learn about what's going on, that's a huge win. That's why entertainment media is so important. It's why Donald Trump today said he's going to sue Trevor Noah for jokes about him at the award show. He did a joke about Trump and Epstein Island, and it's not actionable at all as defamation, but Trump just wants to silence anyone that's saying things he doesn't like. All right, a few more before we wind down here. Let's see. A lot of people have quoted a lot. I really thank you for your engagement. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your engagement here. Jen says GOP is an international crime syndicate masquerading as a political party. Yeah. Jen, I keep saying, abolish MAGA. It's not just abolish ICE, it's abolish MAGA. Now, I'm not saying the GOP is any better. I'm not sure if there is a separation any longer. It might be abolish GOP until it can return to being some political party, then as opposed to this crime syndicate that's about white supremacy. And all right, so I'll read a couple more and then we're going to wind down here. Vivian Barrow for $1 billion, really. That was all the corruption. Karen Black says women equal handmaids, children equal fodder for pedophiles. Yep. And all right, so Alan B., the doctor, says, as Robin Williams said, if they can't take a joke, F them. Yeah, I like that very much. If they can't take a F, joke them. Oh, they can't. Okay, I like that very much. So this is, before we wrap up, this is a great point. Kathleen Hamlin. Many of my neighbors have no clue what's going on. I live in Detroit. It's so frustrating. Apathy is one of the most concerning things. All of us are overly engaged. All of us are overly hyped up. Like, it's not healthy what we're going through. We all know it. Then you have another tier of people who are following it. They're not overly worked up, but they're concerned. Got a chunk that don't follow any of this. Nothing. And you tell them Trump's a fascist and all that, and they go, I've heard that before. So that's why we have to be specific. I think just saying conclusory terms like he's a fascist, he's a tyrant, tell people what he's doing. He's got his troops in the street. And by the way, over the weekend, Trump called the ICE agents, he called them literally his troops. He used the term troops, saying how they're spitting in the face of troops and assaulting troops. When he means ICE agents, he views them as his troops. Trump is openly saying, I'm putting troops in the street of America. That's what his dream is. So it's waking people up. And that's one of the biggest challenges we have. I have no doubt that if more Americans follow what's going on, so what's going on in Minneapolis, see Trump's corruption, that he's pocketing over $1 billion in the White House, using the government to prosecute his enemies, I think they'd be like, this can't be the America I expected. But for some, don't forget, there's a chunk that love it. Like 30%, they love it. The last thing here, Michael Catlett says, I'd rather do something than be apathetic. That's a good way to end today's topic. I'd rather do something than be apathetic. Be engaged. I end my radio show every night. Said, if you want democracy, if you want freedom, stay active. That's it. If you want democracy, if you want freedom, stay active. Check out. And by the time you check back in, this country is going to be even more unrecognizable than it is today. We are the frogs boiling in the pot. We get that it's hotter than it was a year ago. Many of our friends don't even know they're in a pot boiling. They're living their life, hanging out, and it's other things that wake them up. And for some of them, we have to be creative in finding ways to wake them up. But polling shows Trump is horribly unpopular. Trump, before we wrap up, for a little context, his approval numbers now, a Pew poll a few days ago, 37%. He's at the numbers where in the second term, you typically call a president a lame duck president. They'd be lame duck. It just generally happens after the midterm. The corporate media treats him like he's an emperor. That's part of our problem. All right. So I really want to thank Alan B., the doctor. Spectators don't move the needle. Get active. Great way to end. Spectators don't move the needle. Get active. Stay active. Thanks for joining. And I'm going to share this video with my article, which lays out what the judge said in about a half hour when the video comes up. I hope you'll check out the article. I hope you'll share it with your friends and like it and all that. Thanks so much for joining. Have a great day, my friends. Maybe we'll do this again tomorrow. Have a great day in any event. I really